Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. Thank you so much for all the support over the last couple of weeks. Before we get into the show with Michael Davis from Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Sports Radio, I just want to first tell you about the presenting sponsor of today's episode, SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the major ticketing app that you are able to see your score on a scale of 1 to 10 of how good of value that seat or that ticket might be, as well as you're able to see your seat in most stadiums throughout the U.S. exactly where you're sitting. So if you're trying to go to any concerts, sporting events, NBA playoffs, baseball games are super cheap right now. You're able to get $20 off your first purchase. Code 2Pointers, TWOPOINTERS. Code 2Pointers. Link in the top of the description will take you directly to the SeatGeek app or the SeatGeek website. Michael Davis had a lot of fun today talking with him. You'll see that in just a moment. We talked about his Heat in round 2 versus the Knicks. We talked about Steph Curry's legacy, some other great stuff. Don't forget to check out Michael's work in the description below, all of the great stuff he's doing with different podcasts and writing opportunities. Had a lot of fun with Michael first time on the show. Don't forget to follow Two Pointers on Twitter at 2Pointers, as well as my written work over at houseenterprise.com. You'll see all of that linked in the description below. My big board recently released on May 1st, so if you're looking for NBA draft content, you'll see that, as well as if you're hearing this and it's after May 5th, Draft Chat with Tyler Rucker will be on this feed talking best in class. We talked about some of the attributes of these prospects and what they're the best at. So enjoy that one. Have a happy Cinco de Mayo if you're hearing this on or after the 5th of May. Have a fun, safe weekend and enjoy the show with Michael. All right, joining me here today, as you heard in the intro, is Michael Davis, host of Out of Pocket on Tobacco Sports Radio. And let me see if I get this right. WWBG 1470 AM in the Triad. Did I get that right?
You got it right, man.
It was right. I did not look at it at all. It is not on my screen. People know I have 2 screens on this show. That's where the questions are, but I didn't write anything down for you. As at the point is, I've been on your show twice, and I obviously want to make sure I reciprocate the favor. So that was all off of memory, even though some of your intro is right here on the screen. You'll see it. People will see it on YouTube as well. So first of all, welcome. Thank you for being here. How are you?
Dude, I am doing great. I am super excited to be here. You know, I love talking basketball. And again, I told you this on this past Friday show when you were on. Anytime you have Hemi Butler written behind you, I'm good to go.
I left it up there for you. I forgot to take it down for an episode that I pre-recorded yesterday that'll actually go out on Cinco de Mayo. Has nothing to do with Cinco de Mayo, but that's just when people will hear it. It's Draft Chat. They'll hear it this coming Friday on Cinco de Mayo, but I left it up and didn't realize it. So it's going to be in the next at least 2 shows after that. I try to change it based on what we're talking about, but I also left.
You don't have to change that one.
Well, I left the March. Funny enough, I left the March one up the entire month of April. So that's, neither here nor there. So first of all, I wanted to introduce, tell people a little bit about what you're doing in the sports media world. And then we will talk today a little bit about Steph Curry's all-time legacy, dropping 50 points in a Game 7, which is the most ever. Your Miami Heat, obviously we have some results already in that series. We'll kind of preface when this is being recorded when we get there and kind of make sure of the context. And then we'll talk really quick at the end, some other playoff storylines, and I'm going to make you pick the finals. So really quick, introduce yourself and what you're doing in sports media.
Yeah, so you already went through the intro. I'm Michael Davis. I am a Tobacco Road Sports Radio personality. I have Out of Pocket with Michael Davis. Now, I guess we can go ahead and make the announcement. It's going to be live every week now for, you're getting that on your show, man.
That's awesome.
We're going live. You've been on there a couple times, giving really good takes, a couple Out of Pocket takes, but neither here or there. So I have Out of Pocket Fridays at 4, and I also have a wrestling podcast Wednesday afternoons, Drop the Mic, and then I do a Carolina Panther podcast, The Cat Cave, through the Keep Pounding Podcast Network that you can also find via Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I'm a pro wrestling beat writer. I know we're not talking wrestling today, but I love my wrestling, WWE, AEW. And yeah, man, I got my hand in a lot of pots. I work at a YMCA camp on top of this, and I'm going to be starting a 24/7 camp radio station for them by scratch here in the next month. And it's a lot, but dude, anytime I get to talk about basketball, and I know we got to get into basketball talk, but I thought this was really cool. You know how Facebook memories pop up certain stuff for you?
Yeah.
So I saw something from 2016, and my friend had tagged me, challenged me, so I had to fill this out and went through like favorite car, favorite movie, and one of them was your dream job, and it was to have a sports talk radio show, and that caught me off guard today. I was like, oh my goodness, that's my dream job, and I got it.
That is really cool, man. That's what makes these conversations more fun. Is just finding different people who, through different experiences, and obviously, like I said, I'm a fan of your work, and I appreciate the opportunity. So, like I said, reciprocating that favor there. Yeah, it's to this kind of this industry is just, it can be so brutal, as we've saw recently with some of our local guys here in the Triangle Triad area, but it is also something that's so rewarding. And the fact that you wrote that when I was a senior in high school. And that's a long time ago.
Wait, how old are you?
Old enough. I'm just kidding. 25. I'm 25. I'm pretty young.
I'm 24.
So we're trying to trailblaze the industry. That's good. This is where we are. So that's good. I'm trying to figure out a beautiful segue into Steph Curry's all-time legacy. Here's a guy that we watched all the time back to 2016 when they blew a 3-1 lead. No, that was forced. But Steph Curry's all-time legacy is something that I think gets it gets stuck into the back pocket of people's minds, the back burner of people's minds for a while, and then he does something, and then it's the forefront of conversation again. So, first of all, this is a small plug that I will hopefully, if everything goes right and I have some time the next few months, sometime this summer in the offseason when we're trying to find a filler for content, my NBA 75 pyramid will go live. So that is in August is the plan, like late summer, like, hey, the season starts. Steph is obviously going to be very important in that piece, right? So I'm not going to dive too much into where I'll have him maybe or where some things, because a lot can change. We'll talk about that today. So I guess to start out Steph's all-time legacy really quick, he has the most points in a Game 7 all-time with 50. It was, obviously, I understand 38 shots is a lot of shots, but regardless of all of the details there, talk to me about, as somebody who, now I know that we're the same age or similar age, talk to me about what Steph's stature in the game looks like for you and what he's done for the game.
Yeah, and we have to acknowledge our age being 24 and 25 when we're recording this, because we didn't get to be graced with prime Jordan, Bird, Magic, Russell, like Will. Like, we have so many stars back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s that we just didn't get to watch. I started watching like 2009, 2010, around that time. So I was about 6th, 7th grade. Math's not my strong suit. Talking is kind of sometimes, but we have to acknowledge that. But when I think of players who have changed the game of basketball, Curry's there. And I think that's going to be his legacy, for better or for worse, because before Curry and the Splash Brothers, teams were taking a lot of mid-range shots, driving to the basket. And now you even go to your local YMCA and you see kids who have no business being on a basketball court. They're jacking up threes from as far as they can and airballing them because they've idolized Steph Curry so much. And then that mindset's getting brought into high school, getting brought into college, and now the entire NBA. You see games where teams take 40, 50 3-pointers a game. Like just the Game 7, Golden State took 46. Sacramento took 47. Like there was enough from both teams to where it's like it's revolutionized the game beyond the arc.
Yeah, what he means to the 3-point revolution is, I mean, at this point, it's unspoken or doesn't need to be said, but it's such an important piece in his legacy that, again, I'm walking on eggshells in this conversation only because of the kind of detail I want that piece to be, and I want the way that pyramid to look for how he means to the game. But, like, I mean, when you think about generational change to something, like you think Shaq, right? You think like, okay, there was multiple hand check rules and different things that they had to change for him that are now completely shaped in how we see the CBA now. You think like back to even further back, like I think Moses Malone at one point they had to like ban dunking for a little while. I think it was in high school or something like that. I'm getting some of the stories mixed up, but it's, you know, there are guys that wholeheartedly, whether it's a rule change or whether it's just the style of play. Obviously, we're going to talk a little bit about Game 7, but and you mentioned a few stats that were really important, but for him to do something also to like just continue to give us things or reasons to have this conversation is why it's so understated. The 3-point record's going to be there. He'll end up being really high up in points. He'll probably end up being a lot higher than assists than he probably could have been if he just passed the ball more or didn't have all-star teammates all the time, right? Like I think his assist number is going to look interesting when he ends his career. But a 2-time MVP, a unanimous MVP, right? Shaq didn't even do that, and he was 1 vote away. So there are some guys that he is just going to be up there with naturally because of achievement, but yet this conversation is more important because it's what has he done, and we talked about it. What has he done so importantly for the game as well as stylistically, right? Like you mentioned, the Kings, the opponent shot 47 threes. The opponent shot 1 more 3 than the team that is that revolution. So,
and if you
think,
if I may, like when you talk about change, I mean, I feel like that's why Jordan's put up there. I feel like that's why LeBron's put up there. Jordan, I don't know if you've watched the Air movie yet.
I have not. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. So I have changed my plan on it 2 or 3 times. I am planning to go see it here. I don't technically have a date right now, but I'll say this. I'm going to the beach this weekend. If it rains really bad, we're going to the theater because at this point it needs to happen. I need to see it while the big screen's still available. So yes, I would need to see that soon. I understand the story to a degree. I know it does. I think you've mentioned carefully that it does reveal some things that just were not there, that you might have not known.
Yeah.
So I know it is very good, but obviously The Last Dance I have at least seen, which is good. So
yeah, and not to give anything away, but he revolutionized something for the players that with the shoe deal. I mean,
yeah, of course,
everybody knows like Jordan's shoe deal changed the game and put players in a better position. LeBron, as much as I dislike him because he left my team for yours or left his team for his ex-girlfriend and then went to LA and tried to be this big Hollywood star. I mean, he revolutionized the game with mobility and longevity. What do you need to do to make the most out of your career? So Steph Curry has definitely revolutionized the game, and his legacy is going to be like, man, we wouldn't get a lot of the players that we are getting if it wasn't for Curry and the 3-point shooting, because he wasn't supposed to be this big star.
There's no way to predict this, but like the sustainability, there's no way, by the way, to be clear, like he was not, I did not even see this level. Like I liked him out of Davidson. I mean, right down the road here in North Carolina for us, like really good production, really fun March Madness tournament. But at the same time, like I even felt like back then, and I didn't do any draft work. I was super young, but like almost understanding what he was like. Did top 10 still seem too rich a little bit? Maybe, maybe not. I know Johnny Flynn was there, and I know Ricky Rubio was there, and the Timberwolves passed on him twice, and the Knicks passed on him, and some other guys, or he was the pick before the Knicks, whatever. But I'm just glad to know that, and part of this conversation is the situation he's in. And I think that's something that I think would take longer than this 15 to 20 minutes that I want to make sure we spend on it and then move on to other topics. But I don't want to overstate how important it was that they had a split decision. It was Monte Ellis or Steph Curry, and if that decision was not made properly, we may not be even having this conversation. So I understand how important team building is, but at the same time, I know that has put him in a really good position. Is one thing I wanted to make sure I put out there to the world.
So who are you taking, Monte Ellis or Steph Curry?
Right. I love Monte as much as the next guy, and I'm really sad he'll be forgotten. I believe he led the league in scoring one year or was top 3 in there or something crazy. Monte had some ridiculous years. Good
2K player.
I was very good. Yeah. And I haven't played in a long time, but I do remember playing with him in 2013. I mean, that was so long ago now. He was really good. Like he had that Mavericks year too, where he was they were really bad and he was pretty good. So yeah, regardless of the point I'm making about the team, to land the plane, it's really important that the situation, and I think that's it's shedding light on just how important your situation is when you're drafted and how important that if there's a guy that's that good that puts that kind of work in, the team needs to understand the kind of value that's there. And I'm not sitting here saying teams don't do that, but like we'll talk about a team in a minute that, is in a transitional phase with a really good player, and they need to figure out what they're doing after this year, being your Miami Heat. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But Steph's really, really important for this conversation because obviously this year is not over yet. There's a lot of things that are changing and in the fold here. Obviously, if they win against LeBron in round 2, they'll be on round 3. But right now, it's looking like against Denver. Denver is up 2-0 as we're recording this on Tuesday, May 2nd. So I don't even want to beat around the bush any longer. I have a question regarding the round 2 series because obviously you don't need to make, you don't need to plant your flag at a number necessarily. But if they win round 2 against LeBron, because this would be, I believe, if I got the number right from looking it up, he would be 5-1 all time against LeBron in a series in his career. 4-1, 5-1 or 4-1, either way. Ridiculous winning percentage against LeBron, right? If they win round 2, does that change his all-time ranking for you?
That would be interesting, especially if you look at what this team had to overcome. I mean, because Golden State's usually number 1, number 2 seed. They're the favorites. They get the finals, and you can pre-write this back in September. That wasn't the case for this team. I mean, they've dealt with injuries. They've dealt with a lot of injuries, man. And Golden State entering what was 6th seed against the Kings, and everybody's like, light the beam. They're the best thing ever. Like De'Aaron Fox, the first ever NBA clutch player of the year. Sabonis, led the league in rebounds. Mike Brown, coach of the year. Like Sacramento had the pieces and they've been tanking, and now it's finally clicked for them. Even had Harrison Barnes, a former teammate of Steph Curry and everything. You're down 2-0 in series, you're down, and then all of a sudden you win by 20 points on the road against a 3 seed in the Kings. I mean, and this is what I love about the Warriors and teams like this is you can give them a 6 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed, whatever. But once you've tasted success at the highest level, you don't settle for anything less. That would be like us, getting a full-time job and then, getting in the sports broadcasting industry. And then like a few years later, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to go be fine working at McDonald's or fast food place flipping burgers. I mean, nothing wrong with that when you're starting, but once you've gotten into your career, you don't want to go back to that. And that's what they showed me in game 7 against the Kings. And so when we look at this series with the Warriors and the Lakers, LeBron's tasted success. AD's tasted success once, but this Warriors team with Curry, Thompson, Draymond, Looney even, like, they are not going to settle for anything less. And if they will themselves to the Western Conference Finals, I'm not saying they won't make the NBA Finals and have a chance at a ring. I mean, you got to put this in perspective of Curry being one of the all-time greats, especially when we talk about revolutionize the game like we did and ways had to put up and lead his team through this year. It's incredible, man.
Just really quick point that I've heard and I also noticed, so I want to make sure it's known, is he's also reaching this point where like they understand the magnitude of the kind of player he is in those big moments where we saw it in game 5 of the Lakers series where LeBron basically just like parked it in Memphis. He was like, I'm gonna take this game off, but I'm gonna play. I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna make it look like I'm playing, and we're okay with losing in Memphis. If we lose, and we'll move on. He had trust in his teammates. That game was pretty close, but Steph did the same thing. There was multiple times where they burnt timeouts. They had burnt one. They gave him the 6-minute mark, first quarter rest like they always do, and then Steve Kerr took an extra timeout in each half to give Steph like the full-blown, like, here's this rest that you'll need. And honestly, it worked, clearly. I mean, the 38 shots, like we knew pretty much out the gate. That's the thing I like about Klay Thompson this point in his career is we know pretty quickly whether Klay has it or not. That's no disrespect to Klay. It's just with some of the injuries and some of the stuff he's had to change about his game because of that. It's pretty clear. If Klay's out of that game, like he's going to be still a plus on defense, but he's going to be very obviously not in that game. And obviously, Kevon Looney, you mentioned, is a very, very good point as well. Somebody that I could spend all day talking about. I love Kevon Looney. I think he's, awesome player, and obviously he had some circumstances with UCLA and injuries that were not fair to him. But we're seeing what kind of impact you can get from a guy like that, even just in the rebounding department. But they're using Steph properly, and I think that's a testament to Steve Kerr. And whether I'm a Lakers fan or not, this series is going to be a brutal, brutal battle because it's stylistically two different teams, and that's what's going to be so interesting. Is I'm not saying I'm looking past it, but if they get, like you said, if they get past the Lakers, it's who says that they can't beat the Nuggets?
And this could also be our final LeBron Curry matchup.
Yep.
Like we're getting up there. And we could have like a year or two more of it, but I mean, it's not lost on me that this legendary rivalry that really was a part of the NBA Finals for so many years and now a part of the Western Conference semis. I mean, it's one of the last times we could see it. And you've mentioned like 38 shots with Curry taking the shots from distance and still hitting 20. That's over 50% for a guard. You don't see over 50% numbers unless you're talking about guys shooting inside the paint. Like, I mean, putting up 58 and 6 in a game 7 is unheard of just in the point aspect. I mean, Curry's something special.
All right. Anything else before I ask you to potentially make a stake and claim on where he might be right this moment on your all-time ranking? Anything about him? Anything about the Warriors this series?
Dude, I mean, I've pretty much said it all because they have that mentality of like they're not accepting anything less. Kind of have that dog in them a little bit, and it's scary because they're getting hot at the right time.
All right. If you had to make a claim or a statement based on this, you could call it out of pocket if you'd like.
None of my takes are out of pocket. Just
fair,
FYI.
fair. Obviously, it's difficult to just be like, yeah, here's why I have him at this number. But like, you don't, as somebody who talks about the NBA, and that's anybody out. This is a PSA to anybody who might be listening to this, or later will hear this. Whether you say I don't rank all-time guys or not, you do ultimately in your head. Like you have an idea of like that Magic, Bird, Kareem, LeBron, Jordan, Wilt. Those are all guys that are up there, right? So I guess if you don't want to answer, hey, this is where I have Curry, how close is he getting to that conversation? You can answer one or the other, or both.
If he beats LeBron and the Lakers and he ends up making the NBA Finals, just makes it, I don't know how you can't put him top 8.
Okay, that's fair.
In your all-time.
And
that's like, and even if he wins, because how many rings would that be for
number 5
now? Like number 5.
That would put him with Kobe. That would put him with one away from Mike. That would put him one over LeBron, one over Bird, I believe, if my number's right.
Dude, I mean, top 8 might even start being a little low for that, because if he wins the NBA Finals, I mean, and we've knocked LeBron for the amount of rings that he has, or needing a team around him. Curry stayed put. Curry's wasn't supposed to be the guy, and if he's acing LeBron every time in the finals, like he's got to be above LeBron, even though LeBron's like the all-time leading scorer or whatever. Could get over Kobe. Dude, he
could be
top 4 if he wins a title this year.
It's gonna be fun. That's why I wanted to at least put this conversation out. Nobody should expect an answer from either of us. I made it very clear at the beginning the reason I walked on eggshells. So I'm gonna have that debate, right? And in just a few months here, and be able to own up to that and save face there. So I already have him at 10 currently. Let me just put out the number that's been said for the last 12 months. I've had him at 10 for a little while. I think it was maybe a month or two after the title last year where I was like, 10 is a good number. That's a perfect number for me not to overthink the guys in front of him, and then he definitely deserves it over the guys in front of him or behind him. So, and obviously there's guys like KD that are making their case to get into that 15 to 25 range, right, and then 15 to whatever. So it's tough. It's a conversation that I can't wait to have. It's going to be in really, really long written form. So be on the lookout on houseenterprise.com for that. But I look forward to putting that out there and just really thinking about how we view some of these guys, especially the guys we've seen our whole lives. So it's going to be really interesting. Let's talk about a team that is currently also in the playoffs. Your, of course, Miami Heat. First of all, I want to know, because this is one of my favorite things to do on this show, especially with first-time guests, if they are a fan of a team, even if they are trying to unbiasedly cover media, basketball media. How did you become a Heat fan? What is your fan origin story, so I know and understand why you in North Carolina cover the Miami Heat?
Okay, this is one of, if you really want to grind my gears, this is one of the most frustrating questions because nobody ever believes me, and I hate it.
So
Okay, so
I'm fine. I'm never going to question someone's fan origin story. Here's why. I live in North Carolina my whole life. Never left this state. This guy right here behind me, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is my plug. Kobe Bryant's the reason I'm a Lakers fan. That's it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm never going to question anyone's fandom. My Patriots fandom, which makes no sense for where I live, is even weirder. So I won't even get into that because this is a basketball podcast, but I'm with you. I'm never going to question anyone's fandom. I want to make sure that you know that. So now, obviously, once you tell me, I can obviously change my mind. But
okay, so 09, 2010 was the time I started watching. Okay, and I had two favorite players at the time. Okay, I had Ray Allen and Dwayne Wade. Okay, my other teams, Dallas Cowboys. I didn't get into baseball until later. It's the Texas Rangers. Carolina Hurricanes is probably the only like homegrown sports team I root for.
Me too. Go Canes.
Because my best friend's a huge Canes fan. We went to a game a few months ago. Okay, so my dad's like iffy into basketball. Like sometimes he'll watch it, sometimes he doesn't. He grew up on Larry Bird. And so I was like, okay, Celtics, everything. But I was like, this is middle school me. I mean, my dad's a Cowboys fan. I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm like, I kind of want something different. So like, I like the Celtics, Ray Allen. That team was also hard to not like. Rondo, Allen, Pierce, Garnett, Perkins.
Yeah, that's debatable
Tony
if you're on the other end of it. But yeah, I hated them all. Fan. Yeah.
So I was like, okay, you know what? I'll decide. I really love Dwayne Wade. Let me go to Wade. Let me go to Miami. That's my team. Okay. Playoffs start getting here. Celtics and Lakers are in the finals. And so I'm like, I like the Celtics more than the Lakers. Let me pull for like the Celtics in the finals. Whenever you like pick a team, I'd rather this team win than that one. Okay. And then in that offseason, guess who came to town? LeBron and Bosh. And so I get no credit for that 2009, 2010 season of being a Heat fan because everyone says, oh, you're a bandwagon. Oh, you're only there because you like LeBron. Meanwhile, yeah, LeBron was great for us for 4 years. Bosh, Chalmers, Cole. I mean, I could start naming Joel Anthony even was a cleanup backup center. Like, I really appreciate LeBron, helping get our team 4 straight finals, two rings, and then goes back to his toxic ex in Cleveland. I never did anything for him, never gave him anything. And so I know you're a Lakers guy. I know you're probably rooting for LeBron to bring your team a title, but if he never won another title again, I'd be happy. Especially you guys have got the COVID championship, which should have been ours because of Hemi Butler. So that's my story.
That's good. No, look, there's a lot to be said there. And I'm not going to comment, but I really appreciate the backstory so I can understand it. And it's funny because like the decision and all that stuff was like, oh my God, there's going to be so many Heat fans. And it's like, you almost need to like put in all of your social media bios, like Heat fans since 2008, 9 or 8, 9, 10, or, just before the decision, just so that it's just clear, but there's nothing you can do about it. It's so close to it that people just aren't going to believe you. I appreciate it. Hopefully this is a soundboard for it. This is a nice place to land, but,
and if you think about it, if I'd chosen Boston made the finals that year. So boom, you're a bandwagon fan there. So it was a lose-lose situation for me.
I don't really care what people think, honestly, because the bandwagon thing is so stupid. It's like if you didn't really care or you have no reason or if there's no track record that you like the previous team consistently, like who really cares? It's your own fandom. It's your own thing. It's your jersey you're going to buy. It's your money you're going to spend. So I don't really care, I'll be honest. I don't really care what people think or don't. I have a LeBron Heat jersey in my closet, actually.
Oh, this is a Tyler Hero one.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, speaking of Tyler, that's a beautiful segue, right? A guy that they will unfortunately not have for this series, like they didn't in round 1. But let's talk about a little bit. First of all, prefacing this is being recorded Tuesday afternoon, 5:00 Eastern-ish, before Game 2 of this series against New York. That game tips off in about 2 hours, and then Lakers-Warriors Game 1 tips off in about 3 hours, 4 hours. So got a little bit of time here. You will obviously be hearing this after the result of Game 2 and Game 1 of those series. But First of all, what did you see from game one? Obviously, you won. I want to take Jimmy Butler's injury out of this context because it seems like with the around-the-clock work and the kind of guy he is, I say around-the-clock medical work, they've literally reported multiple times that he is just constantly rehabbing it, trying to see what it feels like. So assuming, let's just say that he pushes through it and he's 70 to 90%, which I think he could be even with a sprained ankle. What are you looking for the Heat to do with or without Jimmy Butler in this series to take a 2-0 lead?
So I'm going to go ahead and say the guy behind you had the Mamba mentality. I don't know if I said this Friday, but Jimmy has the Jimmy Juju. Like
yeah, you did say
that. You're like, I can't forget. I mean, he literally willed this team against the number one seed, Milwaukee. Everyone counted them out. No Oladipo, no Hero. I mean, it was set up for Milwaukee to beat Miami in 5 games at best. You know, Miami's the first play-in team to win an actual series since they started the play-in. Since they started the play-in, they're the first team. That's a fact. You can't debate that.
The Lakers did it this year too, to be fair, but
we were the first,
neither here nor there.
Whatever. Yeah. So with that said, I feel like Butler's going to tough it out. I really do. But if he doesn't, and you look at the rest of this team, it's like Kyle Lowry coming off the bench, who also is prone to injury. You have Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, who are, they can have their good games. Vincent had like 20 points game one. Strus, not so much, but one of those can start hitting baskets. And then you have Bam Adebayo, who's your best guy. And it looks very bleak for Miami once you leave Jimmy Butler. He's really carrying the team. And so I expect him to be out there. But if it's not, I mean, you got an inexperienced team with the Knicks who RJ Barrett's talented. I watched him at Duke when he was playing. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, the Villanova duo is back together, and they love playing together. They love making noise. Robinson's good, crashing the boards. Julius Randle, do we know if he's even playing this series?
I don't have any update for game 2, unfortunately, in front of me. So I would assume that he is going to be a shell of himself if he is.
I mean, and even a shell of himself is sometimes better than what we got in Kevin Love. Kevin Love, we needed. I'm not dissing Kevin Love or whatever, but if we're playing, Cody Zeller for a few minutes a game, if we're playing Highsmith, if Haslam, I'd prefer out there over both those guys personally. Especially after the regular season finale that Haslam dropped, showing that he could still do it.
Yeah, so the question I wanted to pose is full transparency. Like, this is a roster that is comprised of 6 undrafted players. And I think I said it on Friday on your show. I said it's no disrespect to any undrafted players, but that is a lot, right? That is a lot of guys that, because of their ability to play, they're on this floor. There's a reason they're on this floor, right? It's not like a few years ago with the COVID being out all the time. You had G League guys in and out, right? These are guys that have earned their spot. However, are you even just a little bit surprised that Jimmy Butler has led this team past Milwaukee? I get Milwaukee missed Giannis for 2 games, but are you even as a fan, are you at least surprised that this is just like that these guys are just this good in their role?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Good.
How could you not be? I didn't go into that series thinking Miami had a chance. I was worried and holding my breath that we were actually going to get ousted in the play-in tournament, just because it was like, this team doesn't look like they care. I mean, this team doesn't look like they can keep up with everybody else. They're dealing with injuries. They're actually one of the older rosters, if not the oldest roster in the NBA right now. And you look around, and once you like lose Tyler Hero, like that's your bucket guy. You lose Victor Oladipo, who was sliding in right there behind Hero. So now you're like, you're struggling. Like you don't really have a bench or anything. But what I will say is, if you look at the players on this roster, you have some veteran leadership. You have Jimmy Butler, who speaks for himself. He's Himmy. You have Bam Adebayo, who is well respected and one of the best centers in the league. You have Kevin Love, who's won a championship before coming in from Cleveland. And you have Kyle Lowry, who's won a title in Toronto. I mean, you have these guys who can help this younger team or help these undrafted guys kind of understand the magnitude of where they are. And matching up against the Knicks in the second round is a lot better than Philadelphia or Boston. There's no reason why this team on the back of Jimmy Butler can't make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I agree.
And if they match up with Philadelphia, Boston's a different story, man. I feel like Boston could blow us out of the water. But if Miami matches up with Philadelphia, there's no reason to think that Miami couldn't be in the NBA Finals this year.
It's insane to think out loud. Let me just be clear. This series is so annoyingly difficult for me because of a couple factors that we'll lay out really quick. Obviously, injury uncertainty with Jimmy Butler. That's just the first one. Like full blown, if he's fully healthy, we're getting deprived. If he's not fully healthy, we're getting deprived of a full blown what we should expect from this series. Obviously, in Game 1, they won with 5 minutes left without him. So, and he was out there. I think at that point they should have just sat him. He was a decoy. I understand the point, but to win by 7 and to be out rebounded to win. I'm sitting here trying to understand, and take that injury out of context and realize that you're not going to win this series. Sorry, you're not going to lose this series if you're Miami if the Knicks continue to shoot 20% from 3 and 60% from the free throw line, which I know won't probably keep happening. So if Jimmy's fully healthy, I like the inexperienced part you bring up about New York. The problem is Mitchell Robinson is, I think people are starting to realize, is a dog defensively and on the boards, right? Which I think is why they're competitive and they out-rebounded in Game 1. The other thing is, too, just you didn't need Julius Randle in round 1. What makes me think they need him in round 2, right? They have guys that at least are confident and are going to show up and be able to get the work done that's needed. And I think Jalen Brunson's just going to have to be the guy. And I think, honestly, he's the second best player in this series, regardless of whoever's hurt or not. So that's why he's got to be that important for them. And if he's not, then the Heat are probably going to win this series.
I mean, Brunson's obviously the Knicks' number 1 option. You put him over Bam Adebayo?
This season I would, yeah. Jalen Brunson's been ridiculous. I voted for him for All-NBA third team. And I think he deserved it, or second, depending on some of the guys around him because of the games played thing. It got really tough with some guys around him that were playing 57 games, and I was like, well, that's enough games. Like, example, Devin Booker, if he didn't play 44 games, Devin Booker would be first team All-NBA this year, and it would have made things even harder. So it's just one of those things. Like, Jalen Brunson was unbelievable this year, and he has to be that in this series, regardless of Julius Randle, which we know he can do. But he contributed to everything I just laid out in the case there why they lost Game 1. So I hate this series from everything I normally would pick a series based on, right? With youth on this side, experience on this side, injury on this side, or significant best player injury on this side, not significant best player injury on this side. It goes against everything that I hate to pick in this series. And at this point, I have zero answer on who I think wins it because I just don't understand what's happening. And I really want to rewatch Game 1 and just be like, I don't understand it even more. So now Game 2 is going to be even more that important. I hate to be negative, Nancy. I really do. But, this series is, frustrating me beyond belief. I want to just be like, this is my pick and this is how many games. But I hate every factor that contributes to both sides, and it honestly washes them out. So if this series doesn't go to 7, I'd be shocked.
So is there any scenario in your mind, and I know you're the host, and this is your podcast, which is a really good podcast. My people should subscribe. There's your plug. So if you see any of these teams making it out, do you think they match up well with Philly or Boston? I think Miami matches up with Philly.
I think only because of Bam Adebayo they do. And here's the problem is, again, injuries clouding these situations in these series is going to suck, right? Embiid doesn't play in Game 1. Harden has the game of his life. He's had probably the best game he's had consistently in the playoffs since 2018 with the Rockets. If Harden plays like that, I mean, it's far-fetched to think that Philly, if they get Embiid back this series, and they've obviously got to beat Boston, I don't know. I think the Eastern Conference Finals is – I think the winner of Philly-Boston is the one that makes the finals, regardless of who comes out. And that's no disrespect to either team. I think both those teams right now are head and shoulders above almost everybody in the playoffs, other than maybe Denver. So I think it's right now Philly is showing why that they're competitive and why they're a different team. And I point to a specific instance where, like, and I'm not saying PJ Tucker is the reason they're going to make the finals, but like with Ben Simmons being not on this team and not being a guy that can't handle scrutiny and playoff success and stresses, PJ Tucker, there's been many clips this series where he is just in B-Ball Paul's face and just like firing this team up and doing the things that a veteran guy, you talked about veteran leadership earlier, PJ Tucker is exemplifies every bit of that. So they have that different just level mentality that I've never seen from Philly before. I'm also the same guy that has picked them to make the finals the last 2 years.
Well, and Philly was my preseason pick.
I remember you told me that. That's right.
And I almost like kind of want to stick to it, especially if Harden gets going or whatever. The only team, and I don't want to say this because they could beat us in the series depending on how it goes. The only team I don't see in the finals is New York.
I don't either. No, that's fair. I don't either, especially if Julius Randle, like I'm not saying he's the reason they win or change a series. They can obviously win series without him. We just saw that. But, yeah, they're not – I love the Knicks fans to death. I really do. But it's not happening.
But once Philadelphia went out and got PJ Tucker and you're looking at that team and Philadelphia hasn't had a dog in them. I'm sorry. Like Embiid's great. He can put up a lot of numbers. Harden, he can step back and hit a three and get to the free throw line a lot of times. But
4 free throws last night, by the way, in a 45-point game, which is what was so eye-opening for me.
I haven't seen a lot of passion in Harden, and Embiid just puts it all on himself and doesn't always rely on his teammates around him. But when PJ Tucker comes in with that veteran leadership, I was like, as soon as he got signed, I'm like, man, this could be the year Philadelphia. There's no reason they shouldn't. And Doc Rivers should be really concerned because if you have this team and, I wouldn't say losing to Boston's a bad idea or, on you. But if you get to the Eastern Conference Finals and you can't put the Heat or the Knicks away, that's got to start ringing in the ears of the 76ers front office of like, okay, why did we not make it back with Harden, Embiid, Tucker, a young guy in Tyrese Maxey who can go off any night? Got to start looking at coaching.
Maxey is going to be the reason if they win this Boston series. Point blank, he's going to be the guy that's out there making the winning plays that's needed. I'll make a really quick Doc Rivers nugget for you since this is your first time. I have been in the Fire Doc Rivers camp for way longer than most. Fun fact for you before I say my point, Doc Rivers has the most 3-1 lead blown as a head coach in NBA history. He has 3 of the 15 all-time 3-1 leads being blown in NBA history. Besides the point, I was talking to a Philly fan, a friend of mine, Julian, who's been on the show before, and he made a really good point that I feel horribly about. He's been in Philly his whole life, Philly guy through and through. You win the finals or make the finals, you keep Doc Rivers and you extend him for 3 years. It's pretty obvious that that's what would happen. You lose in this second round against Boston, you lose Doc Rivers as a consolation prize for not making the finals. It's kind of a win-win.
Consolation prize.
It's kind of a win-win. Another round 2 loss for Philly would mean losing Doc Rivers this year. 100%, I think they can him. You make the finals or win the finals, you keep him for 3 more years. So, honestly, Philly fans at this point are crazy enough that they might talk themselves into losing in Boston if Embiid's hurt this whole series. They're like, you know what? Screw it. And we lose Doc, and everything is okay, and they go out and they get one of the most excellent core of coaches we've seen in a long time that are on the market. So
it's amazing because, like, when you think about Doc Rivers and all the stuff, like, he was part of those big Boston teams that actually won a championship in 2008.
And the Magic before that.
Then he went to the Clippers, and how do you not win with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Grant
That's
Hill
its own podcast by itself. I'll answer another time.
God.
Yeah, I could tell you 1,000 reasons why that team didn't win, but we'll talk about it another time.
And then you come to Philly, and you're like, if you're not even getting close, if you're not even making the finals or the conference finals, what are you doing,
Yeah, if you throw out the buzzsaw Kawhi year, Kawhi was just on a buzzsaw path in whatever year it was at this point. He won 2019, my goodness. Yeah. If you throw that year out the window, yeah, they should have at least put up a fight the last 2 years.
Then if you have Miami, Coach Spo versus Doc, I'll take it.
Oh, I would take Coach I would take Spoelstra in most head coaching head-to-heads. I think I said that to you multiple times now in different shows. Like, I can't sit here and tell myself I'm going to pick another coach, and which is another factor in the series why I hate. It's like, I think New York can win this series if Jimmy Butler's hurt. However, is Thibodeau really going to outcoach Spoelstra? Probably not. I have been one of the biggest Thibodeau anti-people in the industry. Like, let's just be upfront about it. So, all right. Honest prediction. Who wins this series?
Okay, are we adding health into this?
Yeah, you have to take everything we know into consideration. He will probably play tonight. I am looking right now. I am refreshing Twitter every 30 seconds to see if he's playing.
Good. I hope he does, and I hope his ankle is shrunk from the size of the baseball that we heard about. I think Miami in 6. And this is like not biased, but Jimmy Butler wants this, and he is literally going to go until the wheels fall off. And that might happen this series, but especially when you took a look at the coaching, Jimmy Butler, you need a coach and you need a star. And that's what you need. And the experience on Miami, I'm looking at New York Knicks team, and nobody's been in this position before. So why can't they just be another Kings that actually advanced to the second round? Because they've played another inexperienced team with the Cavaliers.
Yeah, last update we have is 12:10 p.m. today that he wants to play in Game 2 and remains questionable for Tuesday's game at New York, but he may try to push through his sprained right ankle, according to Shams. I'm told Jimmy Butler wants to play, Shams said Tuesday morning. I think he's going to try to play as today goes on. That sprain wasn't as serious as we all saw. We'll learn more in the coming hours, and that was at 12 o'clock. So, with that being said, I do think Miami probably wins this series also. I think it goes 7. I think New York figures out a way to slow him down while he's dealing with the sprain. They're going to at least put everything they can on him. I think I said on Friday that Mitchell Robinson's rim pressure is some of the best in the NBA right now, and I think that's going to play a huge factor in a lot of the not-so-good rim finishing guards that Miami has sometimes. I think the three-point shooting is obviously going to be what they're going to lean on, and if they're not making threes, that's going to be, I mean, if both teams shoot poorly from 3, then whatever, we'll see what happens. But I do think Miami wins at 7. I'll leave you with a cliffhanger since we're about to talk about a little bit. We got to rapid fire this to get out of here, but I'll leave you with a cliffhanger for your next invite, whether it's off-season related or not. We do have to have the honest debate if Jimmy Butler's a first ballot Hall of Famer or not. So I don't want either of us to answer right now, but I just looked at his resume just one last time to just make sure I was crazy before I said this question. But it's definitely up for debate, I will say. So it's not out of pocket. Yeah, I love it. It's not up for debate. It's up for debate, and it's not out of pocket by any stretch. That people are going to sit here, and I think Reese's bias is going to be really important. So I think we'll have to make sure we at least have 5 minutes on that conversation next time you're here. So really quick, we'll hit some of the other playoff series really fast. There is obviously, like I said, I am not going to comment on the Lakers game because at the end of the day, why am I saying this out loud? Okay, so I would love to comment on the Lakers game. However, I don't think it's going to matter by the time that people hear this, whether the context of what I say is going to be important. I haven't tweeted any predictions of any games. Obviously, there's a couple of games have been played in these series, but I don't really want to pick the Warriors-Lakers series. At the end of the day, this is my show, so I'm not going to. I really thought about it this whole time. I'm like, if it comes up, I'll make the answer, but like, I just kind of want to watch this series and enjoy and not have a rooting stake in it. If I wasn't so emotionally invested in my team, and I'm trying so hard to be an unbiased member of the sports media, the problem is, I mean, this is Warriors-Lakers. This is two of the best players in the NBA. I'm a fan of, obviously, one of the two teams. It's really hard to sit here and make an honest pick. So we're not going to talk about it. Denver and Phoenix is 2-0 right now. You mentioned Philly, Boston. And then we obviously talked about Miami and New York. So I'll really quick hit Denver, Phoenix. Can Phoenix come back in this series? It's 2-0 right now. It's going back to Phoenix for Game 3 and Game 4 on the 5th. Do you think that Phoenix has a chance to come back in this series?
So if you look at the matchup on paper, this should be a 2-0 series on the other end. I mean, if you're being honest, you went out and got Kevin Durant. You have Paul, you have Booker, you have Ayton. I mean, you trade away one of your best defensive players, Mikal Bridges. I mean, you went out and you got your guy, and he's supposed to lead you. He's supposed to be good enough. That's why when you started putting KD around the top 15, 20, I was cringing right there, bro. But I'll wait for
it's a conversation that people are going to start having more. He's in a lot of really trusted NBA people who are a lot older than we are. He is in most of their top 20s all time right now.
Talent, maybe, but
yeah.
What's special about this Denver team is yeah, you have your MVP, you have your Jokic or whatever, but this is playoff Murray. Aside from the other night in Game 2, he couldn't hit from beyond the arc to save his life. He probably should have stopped. But almost a double double, and this Nuggets team, Gordon can hit any night, Porter can hit any night, Caldwell Pope can hit any night, and dude, I think they're really well coached. I don't think the coach gets enough credit, and Jokic is the Western Conference's Joel Embiid in terms of MVP, in terms of all the hype, and he will go out and put up massive numbers for you. I mean, Denver should be losing this series, but they're not because they're all playing together. And yeah, Denver versus Golden State, I'm still taking Golden State if that matchup happens. I know you don't want to talk about that, but Denver's got it, man. And I could see Phoenix battling back to make this a 7-game series and just see where the chips fall in Game 7. But they're going to have to actually act like they want to play and win a championship, because Chris Paul goes another year without a title and KD's not the savior of Phoenix and they're a second round exit. It looks really bad for their legacies.
Yeah, I'm going to push back only just because of the lack of time together, and I know that's not necessarily a full-blown factor in this. They've only played, I think, starting the playoffs, they only played, 7 games together or something like that as a core, so it's really important. I was also on the other end of if Phoenix had beat the Clippers, and they did, obviously, in 4-1. I was on the other end. I was like Denver's going to win that series, because I think DeAndre Ayton's not a good enough defender or even in the right positional style to be able to understand what Jokic does and how he impacts the game beyond just being a big man. And we're seeing that too. I was on the other end of that spectrum anyway. So it's only because I think people are starting to realize now, obviously, with Denver being up 2-0, it'd be different if the series was 2-0 the other way. But people are starting to understand the type of player Jokic is. And it'll lead me into a question before we get out of here. With that being said, I think people need to understand how important Jokic is as a facilitator and as a player that we've never seen like this since, honestly, Larry Bird was the last player we probably saw that was like this, that was this big, able to shoot if he needs to, doesn't want to score. Obviously, Larry Bird wanted to score. That's not what I'm saying. But that ability to be impactful in every part of the game, and for him to be the guy that's basically the second option on his own team and be a 2-time MVP is ridiculous. The ball goes through him in every single way. Jamal Murray, like you said, Game 2 was shooting himself in the foot, and Game 1 he showed the other side of what he can be. So if they can beat this Phoenix team regardless of the depth, I think that has been really important. The depth for Phoenix is obviously not. People are going to be like, oh, let's just not overblow it out of proportion. That's the reason they're down 2-0 right now. They don't have any depth. They're relying on Devin Booker to score 30-plus like he has. They've relied on KD to score 25, 30-plus like he has. It's just not going to be sustainable for Phoenix long term, and I think Denver is the perfect matchup for them right now, which is why I think I agree with you that Warriors series or Lakers series is going to be really tough.
And let me ask you, how many points do you think the bench scored Game 2 for Phoenix?
Oh, you have it in front of you?
I mean, I pulled up the box score just to be doing my due diligence. They scored 4 points, man.
There it is. Yeah. So
they're relying on Booker, KD, Ayton, Paul, and 4 guys cannot win you a playoff series in today's NBA, especially when you look at Denver's team and they're so stacked, particularly in their starting 5. And then, Denver doesn't have much of a bench either. But with Jokic as the facilitator that he is, he'll get those bench guys, those rotation guys, open for a good shot.
So ultimately, the answer to Phoenix coming back is probably no from both of us. And then, who do you think? Honestly, don't take me into account. Who do you think wins Warriors Lakers?
Warriors Lakers.
Yeah.
I'm taking not my Warriors. I'm
I know
taking.
you. I mean, you did basically say it. This with Steph. It's like, this. Why can't this team do this and do that? It's like, I'm with you. I figured that's probably where we were going.
Yeah, I'm taking the Warriors 6 games.
Okay. So we don't want to look too far in the future. I do have a question that I should have asked before I ask you that Warriors Lakers question, so we can get out of here. Did you like? Obviously, we don't have votes in the NBA voting, but who is the MVP for you this year?
Who was the MVP for me this year? That is such a hard question because, especially now at the place we're in this season,
it's being announced tonight, which is why I'm asking.
You start to take into account like the postseason and whatever.
So I the reason I ask is I don't know if you did this or not, but I put out my ballot. Like I do a whole ballot show every year. I do a midseason, preseason, midseason, and end of year ballot. So I voted for Jokic because I think there's just a point now where voter fatigue becomes an idiotic take, because if a guy is so good and we want to be honest about NBA history and how valuable players are, I'm not going to care about 16 All-NBAs from a guy. I'm going to care about why was he the best player in the league 3 times, right? I'm not going to care that he made All-NBA third team, because guess what? When we take into consideration how valuable someone is, right, we saw that with that horrid roster with injuries the last 2 years, that they were a 6 seed both times. Avoided the play-in. Jokic was the best player on the floor every single night. I got to see the guy in person. Everything that we think about him is legit. And then for them to be the 1 seed with a fully healthy team, people are going to be like, oh, it's a testament to them being healthy again. No, it's a testament to a guy being able to adapt to the teammates that he didn't have for 2 years consistently, and to be able to understand what his place is as an offensive player and how he can be most valuable, right, as a facilitator, as a rebounder, as a guy last night who scored 39 points on 50, 35, and 88 shooting. It's a guy that is so valuable to his team that we're seeing. I mean, again, taking the playoffs in consideration, I hate to go down this rabbit hole, but Sixers won game 1 against Boston with Harden without Embiid.
Yeah.
And I always felt that way, but this is a proving ground for this MVP take.
And that's where you have to like draw the line, right? Like, how valuable are you to your team? Like Jokic, he was topping points, topping assists, topping rebounds. What did he have around him? Now, I will throw a name out there because I think Jokic is the MVP. But if this certain team didn't collapse, and I'm pinpointing a certain trade when that collapse happened, if the Dallas Mavericks make the playoffs, Luka Doncic is probably your MVP. If they never make the trade for Kyrie, Dallas on pace to make the playoffs, probably win a playoff series, and it would have been on the back of Luka Doncic. Rather, you try to go get him helping Kyrie. The record's worse of it because they don't have chemistry together. And I also have the take that Kyrie may not love basketball. And now Luka's just sitting and watching the entire postseason on his couch, whether it's in Germany or the relocated US now. It's we will have seen a Luka MVP, I'm sure.
I think in any other year, maybe, but they would have had to be a top 4 seed this year, which I don't think was happening with or without Kyrie, because the finalists were going to end up being the guys we saw today. So it's, I would say probably just because of that.
They were around the 4 or 5 mark. 4 or 5, 6.
Well, they would have had to end the season in that place, whether they had Kyrie or not. Yeah, because that obviously was going to be really prevalent in voters' minds. And all year, the best 3 players were the guys that are going to be the finalists tonight. So I would only push back just because of that, just because of where those guys would have had to finish. And undoubtedly, no, I think Luka, he's been the preseason pick for most people the last 3 years. I'm not disagreeing with that in any way. I think this year, though, it was clearly going to be the 3 guys that we're debating. And the fact that, and the voting will come out tonight, and we're going to know it. I mean, it's going to be very quickly whether this is relevant or not. If Luka, I don't think he'll even be a top 5 in voting this year. I think it'll end up probably being Tatum and Shea. But it'll probably be Tatum and Luka. So either way, who cares about the 5th place voter? It's a matter of who we think is the 1st place voter, which is obviously Jokic, right? Who we both just picked. So, all right, who do you think ultimately comes out of the East and the West really fast, and then who wins the NBA championship?
So East, I'd really love to say Miami. I want to say Miami, but I still feel like it could be Philly. But then Boston beats Philly, then boom, there you go. I think Celtics are the most complete East team any of those three teams, depending on the matchup, could get there. I think we see a Celtics Warriors finals. And that feels so weird. That feels so like mainstream media, but I know you're hating me right now because I just picked the Warriors to go over on your Lakers,
nope.
but
Never gonna hate anybody for their takes.
Dude, Curry knows what he wants. Thompson knows what he wants. Looney's playing okay. Jordan Poole is hit or miss for me a lot of times.
Yeah,
but
some of those guys that you just mentioned are going to have to play like they know what they want, but we'll see what happens. This is a long series coming up.
It's a long series, but yeah, my take right now would be Celtics Warriors. They're the favorites for me.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on and talking all kinds of playoff hoops with me today. On the screen, as always, will be Twitter. For anybody that is new here on YouTube, Twitter for the guests will always be on the screen, but also linked in the description below as well. Let people know where they can find you, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, if you want to go to the YouTube channel, Tobacco Road Sports Radio, you can find a lot of my shows on there. Out of Pocket live on Fridays at 4. Drop the Mic Wednesday afternoons. The Cat Cave dropped around midweek. That's a Carolina Panther podcast. You want to go follow my Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram at outpocket_TRSR or at Drop the Mic Wrestling, whether you want to watch sports or wrestling or any of those takes. We have Facebook pages. Twitter, B_Michael Davis. I'm sure you have that up now, but yeah. And if you aren't already and you're watching because I promoted or whatever, like go follow this guy, Trevor. He's been on Out Pocket a couple times. He'll definitely be on a lot more as much as we can get him on. And he is top of the notch right here in the Carolinas. So, dude, love your stuff. Found you on social media just randomly, searching the reels. So keep up the good content, man. I'm excited to see your NBA 75 list. I feel like I'll disagree with you a couple times, perhaps.
It's gonna be really fun because my original premise of the idea. First of all, thank you. Looking forward to having you back on as well as being on over there on Tobacco Sports Radio. But it's gonna be really tough because I think I want to be fully authentic and just only do the guys that made the NBA 75 list. But then I'm potentially cutting out guys that I think deserve it, right? Like your Dwight Howards. I think Dwight Howard needs to be on that NBA 75 list. I think it was ridiculous that he wasn't. So it's going to be hard. I might have to just be very honest and be like, is Billy Cunningham on there over Dwight Howard for the sake of the fact I believe it, or is it because he was on there? I'm just throwing out a name that was from years ago I would have never seen that I have to go off his resume. But it's tough. I think Dwight Howard should have absolutely been on there. That's my spoiler. I think I will probably break my own rules in my own piece from start to finish and be like, well, I know I said this, but Dwight Howard deserves to be on there. That kind of guy, right? But I said this before. There wasn't really any snubs. Like, it was like a handful. It was Dwight. It was Vince Carter. I think T-Mac was a snub too, if I remember correctly, if T-Mac's not on there. So it really, like, the list got thin after 75. I'm not going to lie. Of guys that I truly think deserved it. So it's okay. Well, it'll be a fun conversation to have. It'll be very difficult in podcast form, but I'm going to figure something out. But I look forward to it. Thank you very much for being on here, my friend, and I look forward to talking with you again. Thank you so much to Michael Davis for coming on today. If you enjoyed the show, drop a like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube, as well as if you're listening on any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this. Drop it a 5-star rating and a review. We greatly appreciate it. Don't forget, SeatGeek is the presenting sponsor of the 2-Pointers podcast. That's code 2-Pointers. Link in the top of the description below for $20 off your first purchase. Like I said in the intro, you'll be hearing this. I think I said it during the episode as well, but you'll be hearing this if it's May 5th or after. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Have a great, fun weekend, as well as you'll be seeing the fact that Draft Chat is live with Tyler Rucker talking best in class. So all the great content and the great work coming from the 2-Pointers podcast over the last couple of weeks and last couple of months moving forward as well. A lot of great stuff coming. Please follow on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere that you find my work. Everything is below, as always, of course. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later.